For Sunday, June 5th, you found the Georgia gang. Topping our agenda today, Atlanta's streetcar conflict is coming to a head. The GOP meets without its Georgia leader. And in Cobb County, there's conflict over the Braves. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us on this Sunday, June 5th. Tomorrow is Monday, June 6th, D-Day, which puts it 8 days away, or roughly that, from when the state has given Mayor Kasim Reed of Atlanta a deadline to get the streetcar fixed. Fixed. It doesn't work anyway. I mean, where do you start?
There's been a lot of problems with it. We discussed it last week. We'll probably be discussing it next week. But I don't know if they can make that deadline.
Oh, I think that they can easily make that deadline. And it's not a matter of getting it fixed. It's just a matter of addressing some of the issues, many of which are minor, that the feds and the state have pointed out. And they're going to do that. And I don't think that it's anything different from what you'd see on any highway project or anything else where the federal government comes in with an awful lot of rules, safety regulations, and other requirements, and they're passed through the Georgia Department of Transportation.
Jeff, you may be right, but this one came with a hard deadline of June 19th. A hard deadline. You've got to get this thing fixed or we're going to shut you down. That seems to me, Alexis, to be a bit unusual. Kasim Reed was very testy about that this week in a radio news interview. He called out the consultant for DOT who did the work.
Well, I think that he's concerned that they would use such a heavy hammer because they've put so much time, effort, and money into making this project work. And it came along at a critical time in the economy when we were in the depths of the Great Recession, and it really did help to put a lot of people to work, and it put some money into the local economy. So I think he cares deeply about its success and how it's going to work. So I think he's really going to get it together, and they'll meet whatever the requirements are. And I think the other thing they need to do too is to sort of clarify the management of it and go ahead and let MARTA run it. And if they will,
that seems to me to be the case.
That's a good point. Who runs it, Alexis? I think you're right.
Give it to MARTA, right, Phil?
And that's right. Although the caveat is, we've had since January, and you've still had a lot of these technology failures, Jeff. And I hope they can get it done, but I don't know.
Well, I think MARTA is the agency that should be running it. The city has no business being in the streetcar business. Obama put the cities in the streetcar business. That was wrong.
No, Obama didn't put the cities in the streetcar business. The federal government only deals with states, and so, or with authorities like MARTA that are charged with doing this kind of work, where you have a direct relationship with the federal government. And so a municipality obviously doesn't have that. That's why we're looking at DOT.
The president gave this as a gift to the mayors to paper over the fact that the recession was awful and he was powerless to fix it. So as Alexis said, he said, we'll throw a few jobs
powerless to fix
here
it.
On the streetcars
He
around
may
the
have
country.
been powerless to fix it, considering the depth of the Bush Depression that he created. And we're going to be dealing with the repercussions of those Republican policies for many decades to come.
Let me change the subject a little bit, because the mayor, Kasim Reed, is getting a reputation enhanced by our friend Bill Torpy at the AJC of being a man of considerable temper. We got a letter from him this week. I feel badly. It's a very nice letter.
No.
He didn't really get after us the way he has others, but this week, boy, he doesn't like this problem he's got with Qatar Airways, does he? I mean, this airline comes in and it's a coincidence.
I don't think that the mayor's got a problem with Qatar Airlines. I think it's Delta that has a problem with Qatar Airlines. The mayor is saying, look, if we want to be an international city, let's be an international city, and let's invite international players. And Qatar, however you pronounce it, certainly is that.
Well, I agree. In fact, the mayor doesn't like my opinions, but I will have to side with him on this. I think Jeff's right. I mean, if we're going to be a welcoming city, you can't have some sort of yardstick that we don't like this airline or this country or that country. So, I think it is a Delta problem rather than a mayoral problem.
Now, I agree with Delta that the Qatar Airlines, like a lot of the Middle Eastern airlines, is unfairly subsidized by their governments.
Well, that is true.
Now, Delta gets some government subsidies too,
Yes.
but there's an imbalance here. On the other hand, because it's Delta,
They had remember the fuel tax we had to give them?
Yes, that's right.
if I-
Goodness.
I am all with Qatar Airlines.
Oh, dear.
Okay.
Well,
They're creating jobs. They're doing all those wonderful things.
they
Why
are.
not?
They are, but Delta's our hometown airline, so we want to rah-rah for Delta.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We've got a close relationship with Delta,
Now,
but I
let's-
don't think that it means that you cut out other competitors. And I don't know
Well, that's
to what
right.
extent
That's right.
Qatar
Competition is
Airlines is
healthy.
a true competitor to Delta. They don't fly the same
Now,
routes.
Yeah.
let's try to put some
Seems more
perspective on
personal.
all this, because we're sort of narrow gauging here on whether Kasim is angry or not angry. But I think the mayor faces a bigger question, and that is, what is the city's overall transportation plan? The state has one because of that tax increase passed a year or so ago. The suburbs are rallying to find one. Atlanta has a referendum on the ballot come November to add a half-cent sales tax
Right.
for transportation, raises what, $2.5 billion.
Yeah.
Marta presented kind of a wish list, not a specific list. Way, way more expensive than the city will have to spend. Right now, as one Georgia Tech person put it, the city's whole transportation plan seems to be 52 miles of streetcars. We've already got 2 miles too many. So what is the plan?
No, I don't think that we have 2 miles too many at all. When you talk about 52 miles of streetcars, you're talking about building out over the course of the next couple of decades the
Yes.
Belt Line, which is the most transformative development in the city of
It's a
Atlanta.
walking
There's
trail.
Absolutely no question
It's a
about
walking
it. Have you
trail.
been on that walking
Yes,
trail?
it's a
Have you
walking
seen the
trail.
development along that walking
That's
trail?
fine, but
have you
it
been
is-
to Ponce City Market?
it is not a
have you seen any of the?
transportation
Have you seen?
Right.
Oh my!
Jeff, I'll
It
give you the
is.
development.
Let me tell you. If it's not a transportation solution for us baby boomers, but for millennials who have an apartment on the Belt Line and bike to their job at Ponce City Market, it's a transportation network. It is, and an exercise venue, and it's so many other things. And it's a place to really commune and get in touch with the city and see the city from a completely different perspective. The point is, that is where the transportation happens in Atlanta. That's what's going to connect neighborhoods, already is connecting neighborhoods in Atlanta, and will continue
Well,
to do so over the course of the next
And,
20
I,
years.
and I think
20 years.
especially once the West Side Quarry is converted into this wonderful
That's all
lake
going to
and
depend on
park.
city planning and an effort. Kasim Reed has mentioned light rail serving
Yeah.
Beltway nodes. Now in Cobb County, Phil, we had a big fight, 3 more weeks of it, between Tim Lee and Mike Boyce in a runoff for Cobb County Commission Chairman. And, we didn't really get on much detail last week, but if you look at the voting returns with Boyce getting 49% and Tim Lee, 41?
Well, here's
And the third candidate who allies with Boyce getting
Against Lee.
10 or 12. How does Tim Lee get there?
Well, Tim Lee's going to have a hard time, if at all, getting there, because think about this. His vote dropped 15,000 votes from when he ran
elected.
4 years ago. And so I think he's in serious
And
trouble.
turnout was way down too, though.
Turnout is way down.
It's
but
gonna be way down in
It's going
July,
to be
too,
way
for the
down on
runoff.
July 26th, that's true. But the issues are transparency. He was not transparent, according to a lot of the polls and the voters. And of course, the other issue is spending $400 million of taxpayer money with no voice by the taxpayers. And so people don't like that.
It looks like it's a referendum on a Braves. I think it's really a referendum on a referendum, or more specifically, the lack of a referendum on that $400 million. You go out there, you put up that kind of money, but on the part of the taxpayers without a vote. And I think that the vote was avoided because they didn't
What
know
about
which
the
way it would
vision
go.
idea?
Right.
That's right.
What about the vision idea? Tim Lee had the big idea.
Yeah.
He brought Cobb a project bigger than any they've ever had, really, except for Lockheed Martin.
And
I
that's
guess.
fine. And that's fine.
And they got the Atlanta Braves coming next year to
It's a
Cobb
big
County.
get.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
no love for the profit in his hometown, so he might have to pay the ultimate price,
Well,
losing his job.
that may be, but I just wonder. He had a vision.
But
You
it's
know,
all, if he had
It
worked
was
his PR better,
Well, I don't know.
think it might have been.
He did have a vision, and then for Cobb, it was a very ambitious vision. But there is such a thing as representative democracy,
That's
and
right.
I think that if he paid a little bit more attention to that and allowed people an opportunity to vote on this, and I'm sure that the Braves did not want that to happen.
Exactly.
We have
He'd be in a different place
And to Jeff's
electorally
point,
right now.
to Jeff's point, remember that infamous Cobb County Commission meeting where they introduced the whole Braves package and they had the cheerleaders there,
was
which was
awful.
fine. They allowed no opponent of the stadium to meet, and the police hauled out the opponents, and Tim Lee said that's the way it's going to be. Now, people remember that.
They do.
Yeah.
No, that
And
was a bad deal. That
optic.
was a bad deal. All right, we got to get out. Tim Lee did get a big break, in my view, this week. Former Atlanta Mayor Bill Campbell called the move of the Braves to Cobb County blasphemous. Campbell crawled out of a jail cell, peeled back the bars, and said, "This is blasphemy." I think that helps Tim Lee. All right, when we come back, I have a profile in courage. I hope you're going to like it.
Bill Campbell is a good man.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Before we turn to the Republican State Convention in Augusta and who's there and who's not there, I want to short circuit us by bringing you my particular profile of courage of this year. There's a little known news outlet in town called the Atlanta Progressive News. And they broke the story this week about one Maya Dillard Smith, who is the relatively new executive director of the American Civil Liberties Union chapter in Georgia and Atlanta. And Ms. Dillard Smith this week quit over the issue of transgender bathrooms. She's the mother of girls, and she and her girls had an experience in a women's room somewhere with a bunch of guys, as she described them, with deep voices.
She didn't describe them as a bunch of guys, though.
They were transgenders.
Well,
That
they're guys.
Over 6 feet tall,
they're guys.
that had deep male voices, and it frightened her and her children. And here is a liberal upset, rightly so, with this liberal
Apparently she's
policy.
not as liberal as we would
But
think.
here's the policy for viewers. Let me finish this.
Right.
Let me finish this. Let me finish this. The ACLU in Georgia says, whether you agree with it or not, that you can say you are a woman if you are a man. If you think it, you can say it. And that was her main objection.
God, I hope you don't think
No,
it.
I don't think that was her main objection.
Read her statement.
I think her statement.
She disagreed with that ACLU policy.
You know what, though?
Well,
she's
that's
central
fine, and
casting.
she should resign.
She's a graduate of Berkeley and Harvard. She appears to be a really brilliant, well-educated woman. And she finally stepped to the edge of the maw that is modern liberalism and said, that's just a step too far. I can't take it. She's no different than most Republicans, including those who have joined the suit against the Obama administration. It's a step too far for too few. For too few.
Well, I think it's free. I don't think it's a Democrat or Republican issue necessarily. It's an issue with common sense against this warped liberal agenda.
That's what I'm saying.
She's a parent, and as a parent, she gets to make a decision. And in this case, she made a decision for her kids, and I think that she made a decision professionally as well. I know Maya Dillard Smith. She's a beautiful, wonderful lady. She's very, very smart. She's from California. Hadn't been here very long. I hope that she lands on her feet in some other capacity. In fact, I'm sure that she will, and I hope she stays in
Jeff,
town.
isn't it sad, though, that her children had to be traumatized because of this crazy policy?
Well, I don't think, that is sad, but I don't think they should have been, because she should have prepared them for the world outside of their household, because they're not the only people on the planet.
Well, I don't
how
know
old
about
her
that.
girls are, but if you're talking about 4 and 5, let's just speculate, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old girls. I got a couple of them, you got a couple of them at one time, right? You don't prepare them.
That's shocking, because even you said, Alexis, last week that probably the best thing is to have a private restroom, but you can't always have that.
I didn't say a private restroom. I said have more stalls. Nobody wants to see anybody go to the bathroom. What are you talking about?
I agree with you. I think this is a profile in courage. She's not a Republican. She's an articulate black woman who is speaking out, and I say we need to praise her.
I think that it is a Republican invention, this entire issue. It came straight out of North Carolina.
It came from the
now
local
it's a national
ordinances.
issue. It's an international issue.
We got to move. We got to move.
You all invented it.
Let's turn to the State Republican Convention in Augusta. It's hard because it's underway as we tape. We do know a couple of things. Governor Nathan Deal is not going. Claimed a conflict of interest.
Neither is the speaker.
Well, let me clarify that, because I did be in contact with the governor's office, and they wanted to be clear that the Georgia gang got it clear, and that is that he had scheduled, and I checked this out, a valedictorians
Yes, his
event,
high school,
a 2-day.
hosting the high school valedictorians.
And normally, since I've been going to these Republican conventions for quite a while, they always are in May, and it is true that it's the first time that it's been in June in recent memory. So I'm going to give the governor a pass on that.
Well, I guess Casey Cagle will be the ranking Republican there.
Yes.
And the fact is, the grassroots troops that appear at this convention are not happy with the governor over the veto of the religious liberty bill and the veto of campus carry, or both. And so I get that. But did you see the poll where the governor's approval rating is sky high? Republicans he's okay with, but he's also got a lot of Democratic support.
Well, it's
That's
not
right.
sky high, it's split. If you look at the...
Yeah, but overall, if you combine the two, he's in pretty solid position.
That's right.
Well, and this is, well, let's go back to Mayor Dillard Smith, who we talked about just a minute ago, who quit the ACLU. She actually said something which a lot of us, I think, want to see, and that is there's got to be a narrow window of compromise on the religious freedom legislation. It's coming back next year. And again, I praise her for saying something like that. It makes sense.
Well, I think that they did have a bill that did pass the House with a majority vote. And then they went and started messing with it and got it to a place where it included discrimination. So that's never going to pass.
Well, that's why you need the narrow window where you cannot have a discriminatory clause.
All right, we got to get out. When we come back, we'll turn our attention to runoffs in the state of Georgia. We got a couple of more we need to discuss in a little more detail. And Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, words of fire this week. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
You know, we've got these July runoffs. It's somewhat hard to focus. You come off the May primary. Now you got to wait till July for the runoffs. But in the 3rd Congressional District, south and west of Atlanta, where you and I think, Phil, had thought that former State Senator Mike Crane had the edge, now it appears that the dentist and former mayor of West Point, Drew Ferguson, is raising money and getting the support of the others in that crowded field.
Well, that's
making
exactly
it
right.
a real, true two-man race.
That's right. That's Lynn Westmoreland's seat that he's leaving, and one of the candidates that came very close in that open primary was Jim Pace, as you may remember, and his voters will be the swing voters. But again, as we point out, turnout is going to be low. People are on vacation, so that could go either way.
And we have a runoff into Cobb County for commission. Now, DeKalb's election was properly characterized, I think, as a kind of a throw the bums out election. You had the DA defeated.
Right.
You had a good guy, Michael Thurman, pretty much
in.
will guarantee to be the chief executive. And you have Commissioner Sharon Barnes Sutton, who has, shall we say, ethical problems. One of her aides just found guilty by the DeKalb Ethics Commission of some violations. And she put out a flyer at the end of her campaign against another black man named Steve Bradshaw. And she said in no uncertain terms, the guy isn't electable because his wife is white. Really? We're still doing that?
Well, you know, it was unfortunate,
Really?
and I don't understand why she would do such a thing. It was a low blow. It shouldn't have happened.
And irrelevant.
He's a former
It's
Army
irrelevant.
officer who met her while he was in the Army.
He did really well in that race. Very well may prevail in the runoff because of the many problems that she has. And I don't think that kind of campaigning is really helpful to her.
I love that.
And not in that district, not in any district. And again, I think I made this point last week. You know, the folks in DeKalb County get beat up on a lot. But the fact of the matter is, when the image of their county is at stake, time and again, they've made changes where there are
I don't
strong
disagree.
incumbents.
I don't
Where there are
disagree.
strong incumbents. And this goes back to Cynthia McKinney.
Right.
And we've seen it many times. We've seen it many times.
And the sheriff.
And the sheriff, exactly right. And so what you're seeing this election cycle, is, I think, is a continuation of that.
But I love Sharon Barnes Sutton's line in an interview. When questioned about her attack on this fellow being married to a white woman, she said, well, why does he hide her?
Yeah, that was
Why does he
dirty.
hide her?
It's
Yeah.
just
I mean,
terrible.
Come on, he took her to several campaign events, been married to her for almost 30 years. He's not hiding her. If he's hiding her, she's in plain sight. That's ridiculous. All right,
a good tactic.
just for the record, we were so loaded for material last week. Tim Echols won renomination for the PSC.
That's
Beat a
right.
pretty good candidate, Phil.
Public Service Commission. That's right. The people apparently like the fact that we have low electric rates. There was another race too, real quick. Remember State Senator Tommy Williams? He retired. And there was a very controversial GOP primary. You remember Blake Tillery? He's the Toombs County commission chairman. He unfortunately killed a bicyclist, and that became an issue in the race. But he won, and he beat Delvis Dutton in that primary. And apparently, obviously, the voters gave him a pass and felt like it truly was an accident.
Truly was an accident.
And so he now has that seat.
All right. Also in Fulton County, the solicitor position is in a runoff with Keith Gamage and Clint Rucker. So that's one to watch too.
Now, all I know about that is that Clint Rucker is a very well-respected prosecutor in the DA's office.
Been there for many years.
He's been there for many years.
Yes.
I've met him, and I think he's got great bipartisan appeal.
Yeah.
And Keith Gamage has been a solicitor for many years too, and he has a new kind of attitude about restorative justice and helping
Restorative justice.
Restorative justice, trying to keep some of the nonviolent offenders out of the system and getting them back into the community.
Well, he certainly, and Kasim Reed rightfully has pointed out that the recidivism rate in the city of Atlanta and Fulton County is so high, in large part because of these lenient sentences and kind of a catch and release program by judges.
There
and
has been a
prosecutors.
problem of permissive judges, especially in Fulton County.
Yeah. Well, of course, the jail gets crowded too.
Right.
We understand that.
Right.
Now, turning to national politics, just because I want to, this was the week Hillary Rodham Clinton took the gloves off. She went after Donald Trump on foreign policy late in the week. The speech was just fiery and at the same time plastic, I have to say. But nonetheless, I get the impression, however, that everything she said was wrong. Is that?
No, I don't get that impression at all.
Both. Let's be blunt here. I think we all agree both candidates are going to really start doing flame throwing at one another.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And this has started. I mean, Hillary Clinton, for example, said that the greatest threat to national security is Donald Trump. Well, come on, you don't have to like Donald Trump or agree with him.
No,
but
you don't.
That's the type of language.
But let me tell you what.
When you got,
how many was it?
You don't agree
well,
with that.
Well, let me say this. When you got, when was it, 80, 85 Republican national security experts saying that this man is not qualified to be president of the United States and commander-in-chief, I think that that's a problem.
Well, that's because they were for other candidates. That's totally changed now.
These are all Republicans, conservatives who
now people are coming together with him.
Well, I'm not
They
sure
don't
he
like that. They don't like
said.
that.
We got to move here.
They have a-
Hey, I'm not sure he said all the things she said.
You
he
can go play the tape. He said them all, and then he changed his mind the next day, or he said it 10 years ago.
Well, I know
he
there's a
changed
lot
his
of
mind
that.
the
I
next day
think
and
the
on.
bigger issue for Trump this week, we don't have time to dwell on it, but losing his golf tournament at Doral.
Yeah.
There's a problem there. I wonder why the PGA did that. It doesn't seem right to me.
Well, it looked like they took a jab at
but
him and
there's-
moved it to Mexico.
Moved it to
Their
Mexico.
sponsors pulled out. That's why they
Allowing
left.
Donald Trump to say, I hope they've got kidnapping insurance. That was the line of the week.
Well, just hold on to your seats
and
because
for
both
the
candidates
Democrats,
are going to get crazy.
It's gonna
The
be
Democrats
wild.
coming
It's
up
already
Tuesday
crazy.
in California, it will be a nail biter.
It
Yes.
will. It's really close.
Sanders and
Absolutely.
Clinton are that close.
Yes.
Yes.
Can
can't
you
call it.
imagine if
Well,
she...
Well, the
and you
thing
know
is,
what?
though,
This is
she's
a
gonna-
rigged
she's-
process.
it's not
Whether you're
rigged.
for
That's the
Bernie
system.
Sanders or Hillary
Come on,
Clinton,
all
those
the systems are-
superdelegates are totally unelected, and that is a very
Except that
undemocratic
the superdelegates
process.
are all elected officials.
Yeah.
So the other thing
Gotta get
is,
out.
she's going to be the winner by the close of the primary in New Jersey, which is the same night. She will have enough delegates.
But imagine if
which
she
is 3 hours
loses
before California.
the
So
largest
what?
state in the union.
She won't.
Well, she could. The polls are
could.
dead even right now. All right, we got to come back. We'll regroup for winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And I'm told we're going to have to speak quickly, so Jeff, that task is yours.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Bill Campbell. He's going to be my winner of the week. He has been maligned. Bill Campbell agreed to an interview on the Olympics, and under the condition that it wasn't going to be used in any other way. And then this blasphemous remark relating to the Braves came out, and so I think that Bill Campbell's a good guy. He's kept his head low. He has made his sacrifices in the name of public service, which I would never subject myself to, and he's my winner. The other winner's got to be Bernie Sanders. I mean, you can't. How do you stay in a race like that? I mean, and just state after state after state. We just talked about California. Very possible that he may pull California out, and still he won't have the delegates. But let me tell you this: if he were the nominee, he would beat Donald Trump because there are so many young people who were excited about that campaign. The other thing about Bernie Sanders, 75 years old on the presidential trail. Hats off to him.
I can't believe. I know. I'm with you there. Go ahead, Alexis.
I'm going to salute M. Tamanika Youngblood and Congressman John Lewis. They were honored by the Sweet Auburn Works benefit this past week at the Atlanta History Center. So congratulations to them. And True Colors Theater Company, too, had their fundraiser to support their August Wilson competition for high school students.
All right, Philip.
You know, my winner is the prominent Atlanta attorney Randy Evans. As we tape, he's probably going to be reelected as our national committee man for the Republican Party. Got great influence. He actually was
He's
a
the
great
only guy
voice.
who understands it.
A great voice for keeping the rules the way they were and not changing them. You know, that loser, wasn't that awful? This Muslim refugee attacked a woman in Lawrenceville and attacked the American flag. It shows that we're not vetting these refugees. The loser is this refugee resettlement policy.
Yeah, that's a strange story. All right, my winner will be, as I've already said, Maya Dillard Smith, who has resigned her position at the ACLU over a matter of principle, good principle in this case. And my loser, Kasim Reed, just fix the streetcar. Don't fight it. Don't blame boogeymen out there. Don't blame consultants. Just get it fixed. Huh? See you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.